Hi, welcome to America's Heroes Group, our live digital stream media show. Don't forget, November is
Welcome
Military
to
Family
AHG Connects.
Awareness and also National Family Caregiver and Prostate Cancer and Alzheimer's Awareness Month. This is for Wednesday, November 13th, 2024. I'm your host, Sean Claiborne, U.S. Army National Guard veteran, and we have with us today Wendy McClinton. She's a U.S. Army veteran and president and CEO of the Black Veterans Social Justice. How are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you, Sean. How are you?
Doing pretty good.
Good.
Now, I want to kind of get an idea, but first, tell us about Black Veterans Social Justice. What is it all about, and how did you get it started, and what does it mean for veterans?
Okay, Black Veterans for Social Justice was established 45 years ago by Vietnam veterans coming from Vietnam, coming home, not being able to access services. Its founder, Joe Mashariki, and these veterans established this organization. They knew that they would have trouble reintegrating back into society. They knew that they would need employment. They knew that they would need various types of supports that would help them make that transition from military to civilian life. And they devised this organization to do just that. It was in 1994 that I exited the military as a homeless female veteran with 3 children under the age of 5. Wow. Coming back to New York, the only thing, Sean, I was able to access was unemployment, and wound up in the Bronx at the EAU in the shelter. And it was there that someone came through with a flyer asking the question, are you homeless? Do you need services? Are you a veteran? You know, we can help. So I went to Black Veterans for Social Justice with my 3 children. And they not only gave me my first job as a secretary, they also gave me my first apartment to live in. And I rose up through the ranks. And in 2010, at the retirement of the founder and CEO, Joe Mashariki, I was appointed the president and CEO of that very organization.
Wow. So when you came out of the military, how did you end up on the street? How did that, I mean, when you think of a veteran, I think of a proud, strong veteran, especially a Black woman coming out of the military. I see the possibility of success going into a corporate job or a blue collar job or whatever it might be. What were some of the obstacles that led you to be homeless?
Well, one obstacle was I was transferring from Schofield Barracks in Hawaii, the 25th Infantry Division Light Mechanized. So everything that I was told in my transitional briefing, that I would be able to access housing, I would be able to access unemployment, all of my needs would be met once I had boots on the ground in New York City. That was not the case. The housing that they were talking about was NYCHA housing, which had years and years and years of a waiting list. The other thing with employment, having 3 children under the age of 5, if you can't secure housing, if you can't secure housing and the basic needs of security, then that wasn't an option as well. My parents going back to their home, that home with a room where I once stayed, that I left the military left that home to go to the military, was now occupied by foster children. So there were all these other outside things that made it a very hard for me to make that transition. Secondly, working with the transition briefing that they're having now is not the transition briefing that we had then. That transition briefing was much shorter. It was something that you had to do to check off the boxes in order to get out, but they were actually words, but they weren't actually rooted into where or the town that you were going into. So it was those things that helped, that transition even a little bit more difficult.
So how did Black Veterans Social Justice come to you?
Oh, through outreach. I was at the shelter and they sent their outreach workers with these flyers. They were actually out doing grassroots outreaching, looking for veterans, trying to find those veterans that are in need, those veterans that may have not fallen through the system, may not have access to resources, and just doing the work that they started out, do grassroots organizing and outreaching. And that's one of the same principles that we're founded on today. We go after the veteran, meet the veteran where they're at, and try to meet the needs and make a way for them to make that transition.
And how did they help you? How do they find housing? How do they get money to you or get the support to you?
Okay, well, one thing they did was they received grants from the United Way, from HPD, Housing preservation development, and they developed their own portfolio of housing. So they had housing for low income, housing that is just specifically for veterans and their families. They have housing for individuals with disabilities. Currently, they do shelter hotel operations, but back then it was just their private portfolio. They had 2 buildings specifically geared for veterans and their families. And I was then placed in one of those apartments to raise my children until I was able to build, sustain, grow, develop, heal, whatever I needed to do to make that transition out, that I'm able to stand on my own and contribute to my family and community.
And what's the work that you do with the organization today? What do you do personally for them on a daily basis? How do you help veterans? How do you reach out veterans as the president and CEO of BVSJ?
As the president and CEO, I oversee all the operations, especially those that gear specifically for veterans. Through our homeless veteran reintegration program, which is funded through the federal government, through our transitional housing programs, which is programmed through the city, and also through our private portfolio, through our Staff Sergeant Fox programs, we meet veterans through their mental health needs. So we're able to transition that. My role is to make sure that those services are delivered qualitatively and executed precisely the way the veteran needs it to do, not to hand feed or spoon feed them with something that we think they should have. We try to meet the veteran where they're at, give them the services they need, and then help them to thrive and not just survive as they make these transitions.
Now, you've been out since 1994, as you mentioned. Have you seen any changes since the conclusion of the Iraq War and the Afghanistan War?
Oh, yes, definitely. The difference between the veterans now, I've seen veterans I've worked with veterans from Vietnam, worked with veterans, Iraq, Afghanistan, and now we have these veterans, new veterans that are coming out even more, this younger group of veterans, which are 25 to 30. But then you also have to look at the difference between each one, and what's affected by each one of them is technology. Every time a branch or every time an era transitions, the technology changes. And when technology changes, when things change, you have to change with that in order to accommodate and meet the needs of those veterans. So where we had certain programs or certain things that are geared for our seasoned veterans, we have people who have been out years that still need services. But then you have those veterans that come out and they've only been out of the military 2 or 3 days. So their transition is a little bit different because they still have 1 foot in and 1 foot out. They haven't made the total transition. So each person is treated differently. There is no just one catch-all for everybody to fit into. So that's why we have to say we have to meet each veteran where they're at.
Now, has it been particularly challenging over the last couple of years with inflation and the price of groceries going up and the price of housing going up?
Yes, definitely. First of all, Black Veterans for Social Justice, every Wednesday currently through our HelloFresh initiative and also with the assistance of the Department of Veterans Services, we prepare 2,000 meals every Wednesday that we deliver to veterans, their families, and the community, specifically veteran organizations, to stop food insecurities, to health disparities. All these things come with, not being able to sustain oneself after transferring out of the military. The needs and everything that you have in the military, that was another issue. Even in my transitioning, it's still an issue now that I'm hoping that we will be able to address, and they are, that once I was in the military, everybody was taken care of. Me, my family, my needs, every basic need. But when I came home, the only person that was able to be serviced was me. So now I have to navigate the bureaucracy, to try to get services for my family as well. So you have that you have to deal with. You also have to deal with the time of the veteran. We lost a lot of veterans during COVID. With technology, our senior veterans, not able to do telehealth and mental health, not able to access that technology they needed because everything was shut down. In looking at that, you still have to take that technology, and how do we take that and now use that to gear towards our new veterans that are coming out, using technology to make sure that they are able to sustain a good living wage, that they're able to make strides in areas that they're very familiar with and grow and develop that way. So it's a gambit of different things that we work with all the time.
Now, you have an event coming up on November 15th, but before we get to that, I wanted to ask you a personal question, if I may.
Sure.
So how did your children, how did being homeless affect your children, and how did you navigate that part of it?
Well, one of the things I can say, which was it was bittersweet. It was bitter that we were homeless, but it was sweet because I was a soldier and so were my children. So I had three boys under the age of 5, and I was a single parent. Their family, their father and I had divorced while we were in the military, and I raised those children in the military with me. So where I went, they went. They went to military schools. They knew that I was a soldier, and they were a soldier too. So when I'm dressed right, dressed, they're dressed right, dressed. So when I walk left, they walk the same way. They talk the same way. So it was easy for me to make that transition because they followed me. They knew just the way we were going to move and knew how to take instruction and carry it out. And that's what a veteran does. We take instruction and we carry it out. So that was good. I think that the most difficult challenge for my children was transferring from military school to public school.
Wow.
Now that was different for them. Going to DOD schools, and they're going to public schools, and they see all this freedom and stuff like that. They were like, we are not used to this. Being in the shelter system was a little bit different. I'll tell you, just an experience, having someone say to you, and you say, you're there, you're with your children, and you say, hey, is there a place? Is there a shelter? Is there any place for a female veteran with children to go? Someone like me. And to have someone say to you, well, what makes you so different than any other woman in here?
Wow.
Oh, I'm very different. I'm trained to kill you. I'm very different. My mindset is different. Individuals have to understand the individual that left to go in the military is not the person that's coming back. We are trained to defend. And I will defend my children. I will defend myself at all costs. So it was such a blessing to see Black Veterans for Social Justice because they not only helped me, they had other supports for my children, especially, with the brotherhood, especially with men there that could work with my three boys and help them, make that transition as I did, but have a male positive figure role in their life as well.
Now, do you have any connections or do you work in any capacity with the VA?
Oh, yes, I do. If with the VA, we have with our Staff Sergeant Fox programs that dealing with mental health and suicide. We do linkages and partnerships. We work quite well with them. And for those services, making sure that our veterans get the services that they need. We make sure that they get the benefits that they need. Through our case management, through our VSOs, our veteran service officers, we try to get everyone the services that they need.
Wow. Now tell us about November 15th. What's coming up and what's that all about?
Oh, November 15th is something that's going to take over New York City. This Veterans Empowerment Summit, there has not been a summit like this ever in New York City. This summit is geared specifically towards our younger veterans between the ages of 25 and 30. It's going to open some doors for them through technology, through gaming, through artificial intelligence, cybersecurity. They're going to be able to get financial literacy. They're going to work with platforms that give them that boost so that, again, and I keep saying this term, that they'll be able to thrive in a space that they are so familiar with. That they are so familiar with technology. You have people coming together like AMC Networks. You have Moet Hennessy. You have Navy Federal Credit Union. You have what is an Xbox and so many others. It's off the top of my head, Xbox and all of them that will be there, as partners, as collaborations to make sure that these veterans have the tools and techniques that they need to do and thrive in New York City and then beyond.
Well, now how do people get tickets to the summit and how do they find out about it?
Well, the summit is sold out. It is sold out, but we hope to do it again and do it again real soon. But however, what you can do, you may not be able to come to the summit, but you can follow us on our media platforms. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and you'll be able to see, and maybe you'll be a veteran that can be a part of this initiative with Xbox, with Microsoft. So sorry, I forgot. They're a partner as well, and that's an important partner, a collaboration, because they are going to be doing work with 5,000 veterans to make sure they introduce them to these various technologies that'll help them to thrive and do what they need to do in New York City.
I really like the idea of you using technology to try to give people tools that they can use to improve their lives and also be empowered. Do you see the work that you're doing? Is it penetrating into the general mindset of the community where they understand the difference with veterans and the idea of someone who goes off to, especially someone who gets deployed, going off to fight for the country or serve the country overseas, and then coming back home and not having a home in their own country? That seems like it's something that this shouldn't be. It shouldn't happen. I think most people will agree to that. But do people really understand how that happens and what needs to be done, what changes need to be made to prevent that?
Yes, currently, and sitting on many of the boards that I do sit on, they're looking at that very issue strongly, making sure that active duty individuals, active duty service men and women receive the information that they need to make sure that they not end up homeless, make sure that they have the right skills, make sure that they have the right techniques, everything that they need to make sure they can transfer those skills into employment, transfer whatever they need into housing, making sure that the transitional assistance program is not 1 week, but it's 6 months, where community-based organizations like Black Vets can have soft hands on an active duty member and assist them while they're in the military to make that transition, so they're not there cold and they're not there blind. But then if someone does fall to the crack, we make sure that we have those supports and those things in place, because even though we're looking at technology, we still can't remember that we still have veterans that suffer with homelessness. They still have suffered with unemployment. They still have things that they enter in with their mental illness and different things of that nature. Everyone will say mental illness, their mental well-being. That's what we're coining it. It's making sure that they thrive in their mental well-being as well. So having the old way transitioning into the new, that's what's going to make all these veterans thrive in the spaces in which they want to participate.
If there was one magical thing that somebody could give you, either whether the government or whether some billionaire came down, maybe Elon Musk decided to give you some kind of donation or some kind of change, whatever, what thing would you ask for BVSJ?
I would ask for BVSJ to be the lead mouthpiece and sounding board for the initiatives of veterans within the tri-state area and abroad of New York City, making sure that we have the know-how, making sure that we have all the apparatuses, the fiscal apparatuses that we need to make sure that we continue the services with tender loving care and a listening ear.
Why do you say that?
Because people often suffer from a lack of knowledge. And when there's no communication and when there's no teaching and when there's no education, that brings in fear, misunderstanding, and not being able to have that bridge or make that connection or bring that unity that we need between the community and veterans coming home, between their family and coming home, between corporate America, between the wellness of veterans, between the VA and the DOD. There must be constant education. There must be constant communication.
And what would you advise people coming back out or coming out of service, I should say right now, people coming out of service that haven't really thought about their transition? What would you advise them of things they should be doing to make sure that they have a successful transition?
They should be thinking about it. They really need to think about that. What am I going to do? If you've been in the military more than 5 years, what am I going to do? One cannot assume that you're going to get a job in your work or job that you're doing in the military. If you're a nuclear warfare specialist, how are you going to transfer that job into a civilian job? If you're in logistics, how do you transfer that? If you're in technology, how do you transfer that? All of those transferable skills have to be looked at. So that's where it starts out, Sean, even before you go in the military. When you go in the military, you should have an idea of what you're going to do when you get out. To be a CEO, there was one thing that I knew in the military. I was an administrative specialist. So for me to come out the military, it was no issue. So when they asked me, Mr. Mashariki said, well, what type of job can you do? I said, well, I can answer this phone. You look like you need somebody to answer this phone, and that's what I was hired as, a receptionist. And from there, I was able to bill. So it starts before you go in the military to decide what you're going to do when you come out. So making sure of the selection of your job and your practices before you go in will ensure the type of transition too when you come out.
Wow. Now, one last question. But when you were in the military, what was the most profound thing or experience that you had while you served?
The most profound experience was traveling abroad, traveling to other countries. I was in Korea, transferred through, and living in Korea was an experience for me that showed me another way of life. It showed me different experiences, different cultures, different things that would not have experienced before. So those are the things that I will take with me, my travels in the military. I've worked at the Pentagon. I've worked in Hawaii, and United States Information System Command in the Pentagon, 118th Detachment Postal in Pusan, 25th Infantry Division Light Mechanized in Schofield Barracks. So that travel and opening my eyes to various different things, that's the thing that I will take from them.
Well, we got a little more time. So I want to also get into this since we have a little bit of time. The organization's Black Veteran Social Justice. Now, we've had people on our show that talked about the fact that a lot of Black veterans have not been able to access their benefits once they were discharged. Can you speak about that a little bit and tell us, how is that changing or getting better?
Well, it's better. First of all, I just want to share, even though we're Black Veterans for Social Justice, we serve all veterans, no matter what your discharge, no matter what your gender. I was on earlier when you spoke about that you're not, you're not eligible because of your time in service. If there was a need that you needed to have met or needed to meet, and you still are to us a veteran because you did serve, then we would try to get that need met. If it's not through the VA, it's through any other means that we have accessible to try to service you as a veteran. So with that, we have to make sure in all those things, we have to make sure we have everything in place to service anyone and everyone that comes through those doors. Most of the time, I find that our veterans of color, they're not privy to certain information on how to access the VA, on how to access their disability or the benefits of that nature. So this is why you have community-based organizations such as Black Veterans for Social Justice, and there are many others that have veteran service programs and have individuals there that are specifically geared to address the needs of veterans. So you walking off the street and say, I'm a veteran, and we're going to service you.
So Black, white, Hispanic does not matter. Does my skin color, gender?
Does not matter.
Wow.
Does not matter.
Wow.
We service because it was Black veterans that established the agency, but we service all veterans.
Wow. And how would you say the makeup of the organization is? Is it predominantly Black, or is it just a wide diaspora of people that actually use, BVSJ?
It's predominantly Black, but however, we have everyone that uses the services. I'll say, people of color. Yeah.
Okay. And what's unique about the New York area, in case say compared to say in the southern states where a lot of the bases are, or areas like Chicago? What's unique about your area?
Well, New York City is the epicenter of everything. When I travel down south, it's a different way that they service and honor their veterans. They service and honor their veterans in the South every single solitary day. In New York City, when I came home, I really did not think New York City was veteran friendly.
Wow.
I really didn't. I went to Times Square. I did not see anything that said, welcome home. Thank you for your service, except for in Kennedy Airport where the USO Center is, or on 42nd Street. Wow. But then as we began to evolve, we began to now bring out certain traits and certain qualities, and we saw the need and tried to put the face of the veteran out in the public through our train stations and through our billboards and our advertisements. And then it began to transform into this veteran-friendly space. And what makes it so epic is when we can devise and create pieces like this empowerment program, this empowerment summit that we're going to have. That's what makes New York City special. When you can galvanize all these various leaders, Microsoft, Xbox, Moet Hennessy, AMC, Navy Federal Credit Union, and to name a few others, and bring them all into one space and gear them specifically for veterans, just because of their mental wellness, their financial literacy, and all the things that we need to have done, putting them in digital platforms. They haven't done that in the South.
Wow.
They don't have those things in the South to do that. Where the South is more ceremonial, the city, where it can be one day eventful, this piece is now going to transition not to just one day, but every day. It's the Veterans Everyday campaign. We're not just veterans on Veterans Day and Memorial Day. We're veterans every single solitary day, and our lives and everything we do with it should match that.
Wow. And give us a message for the veterans for Veterans Day. Veterans, we're actually recording this on a Sunday, the day before Veterans Day.
Oh, wow.
We're airing it on Wednesday. But I wanted to give a shout out to the veterans out there for Veterans Day.
I'm going to say thank you for your service, forward ever, backwards ever.
I appreciate your time, Wendy.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Wendy McClinton, she's the president and CEO of B.V.S.J. That is Black Veteran Social Justice. But have you get on our show? We want to talk about more things.